Nick was in the hospital for 95 days. His whole body was being run by machines. The ventilator alone, $3,000 a day. So just the ventilator alone, on top of like the 20 other machines that were running his body. So like when I heard, I think that I immediately was like, what am I going to do?
Welcome, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot of ground to cover, but before we get into that, we do have to cover some important legal stuff. For everyone at home, myself and Amanda Kloots are both non-client promoters of SoFi Wealth LLC, and we've both been compensated by SoFi for our time.
And I'm a registered representative of SoFi Securities LLC and an investment advisor representative of SoFi Wealth LLC. In every episode of Richer Lives, it's my job to make sure that we don't say anything that misrepresents investing, and we're giving good money guidance. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. I think, roles are reversed a little bit, co-host on the talk.
Oh,
so
yes.
Now you're going to be answering the questions.
I was like, how? Okay, yes.
In addition to being on the talk, celebrity trainer and then founder of Amanda Kloots Fitness, former Broadway dancer, and Radio City Rockette.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Author of the New York Times bestseller, Live Your Life, My Story of Loving and Losing, Nick Cordero, and contestant on season 30 of Dancing with the Stars.
Yes. You forgot my children's book. I'm also a children's book author.
Wow. Okay. So probably.
I mean, if we're listening, no, I'm kidding.
It probably wouldn't fit. I'm like, it's going to be one of those ones where it flips open.
I'm teasing you. I'm just adding it in.
We have to have a little icebreaker just to welcome you to the show. Keep it super duper light.
Okay.
I need to know, what is the weirdest thing you have ever done for money?
Okay. I did Broadway for 15 years. Broadway shows, you go in and out of work. And when you're not working, you're on unemployment. So you need a lot of jobs that are paid under the table. Okay. You understand? Yeah. So I have many. I mean, dancing on top of, pillars at bar mitzvahs and weird costumes is one, playing Cinderella at children's birthday parties is one. I was an airbrush artist at a tanning salon for a while. So, I mean, I've run the gamut, guys.
I mean, the Cinderella thing, I can definitely see.
Oh, well,
you make a beautiful Cinderella.
Thank you. I'm too tall for real, but for Cinderella. Okay. But yes, thank you.
What about you?
I don't know if this is the weirdest, but I worked as a camp counselor at a summer camp. And the younger kids were wonderful. The teens, the tweens, they were so mean, bullied me all summer.
Oh, gosh.
And they would just they would say teen things. They'd be like, your shoes are ugly. I'd be like, oh, what am I supposed to, I can't go home and change right now. So I think I wouldn't do that again. Let's just say that.
Okay. What about you?
I worked on a recycling truck for a summer.
Oh my God, my son would love these stories.
Yeah, it wasn't weird, but in the summer, it smells.
Yes.
And the guy who drove the truck was the most ambitious recycling truck driver ever. He wanted to finish our route by lunch so we could take other people's routes. I'm like,
wow.
Easy, okay?
Wow.
You're like, I'm not trying to pick up extra routes.
Yeah, this was college. I'm like, I'm just trying to survive. But
right.
I like this job better.
So, Amanda, this is a money show, so I'm very curious. You are a multi-hyphenate. You have a fitness brand, you're a creator, you've written a book, you've done all of these things. How do you balance those lines of business?
I think as an artist and a creator, you're just always worried about money and that you're not going to have a job. And so you create all these other things and little businesses so that, you have something coming in at some point in time. And I think that that's how my mind still works. If God forbid I get fired from something, well, at least I still have my fitness business. And that's something I can control. And that's something that I do. And no one can take that away from me. And, or if, social media goes out and influencing things aren't anymore, well, then I don't have money from marketing products anymore. So then at least I still, have this situation. I kind of always live and pretend that I don't have any money so that I just constantly keep working and keep just, working away at that so that I think, again, that's just the Broadway mentality of you're not going to work tomorrow. Can you survive? Or, something's going to go away. And I don't know. It's just, I don't think that bug will ever leave me, unfortunately. But yeah, they kind of all just help each other out, I think.
Yeah, and it sounds like you very much live well below your means, so you're not going crazy with the lifestyle inflation. So
Yes.
today you's taking care of tomorrow you.
I try not to go crazy. I try to live a happy life, and like if I'm going to spend my money on something, I love to spend it on travel. Like I'd rather go have an experience and an adventure than a new handbag. Like I don't care about that kind of stuff.
See, what's so funny with that response is like, it's almost like a financial planner like wrote the ideal response, because like a lot of times when you buy things or you shop, it's like a quick dopamine hit, and then it goes away and then you have to buy more things, and it just leads to like overspending versus spending money on experiences. You get to plan ahead for it. You get to do it. You get to look back on it. So it's just so much more impactful.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like that's like the perfect response to like if you're going to choose how to spend money.
Oh, well, thanks.
No price tag on good memories.
And I think like one thing kind of just looking back and learning more about you was like even going back to like Broadway, like when the show you were involved with closed, you then pivoted to the fitness side of things. Like was that an immediate pivot? Did you plan it ahead, or how'd that work then?
I had been teaching at a fitness center in New York City for 6 years.
Okay.
At the time. And I had an idea of a business, my own fitness business that I wanted to do based off of a jump rope. And when my Broadway show closed, it kind of was, I was a little bit at a turning point because I was 32 in my life. And, at that age in New York, you kind of start wanting a real apartment that might have like a laundry in the apartment and a kitchen and a closet that, can have things in it. So, you're at an age where you're not okay necessarily sharing a bedroom anymore.
Yeah.
And I kind of just took a look at my life, and, Broadway is wonderful when you're working, but for me, I'm a certain type on Broadway, and I'm not appropriate for every show. So I would always like do a Broadway show and there would be like a 3-year break, and then I would do another Broadway show and there'd be a 2-year break. So it wasn't something consistent in my life. So I just kind of took a lay of the land, basically. And I was like, where do I want my future to be? Oh, I would love to have a family, a home, a life one day where it doesn't depend on somebody else telling me when I can work. And that's Broadway. Like if I keep on this path, I will never be able to make my own decisions, take control of my life. So when I had this idea for a fitness business, and where I was working was not going to sustain me because it was an hourly job without insurance, without benefits, I was just, I was like at a kind of a 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I just decided to take a chance. I didn't fully leave Broadway, though. I'm a type of person that kind of takes a chance but still has 4 fingers some in other places, just in case. I cover my bases. But once that pivot kind of proved to be financially successful, I put all my eggs in that basket and just decided to grow that business and move forward in that direction.
What do you feel like that, lightning strike moment was, like when it really took off?
I started training a very popular influencer in New York City, and this was like the early days of social media and Instagram. And so when I started training her, I didn't fully understand the magnitude that it was going to have on the effect of my business. And wow, did I learn quickly. It was incredible. It was the quickest learning experience I've ever had about like somebody's presence on social media and how they can market your business and how that affects your growth. Insane.
Yeah, so you start training this influencer, and just like random people start emailing you saying, I want you to train me too?
Correct.
Wow.
And then my classes were sold out with 60-person wait lists. Yeah. It was crazy. Really crazy.
After hearing you describe Broadway, I almost feel like that's like the perfect training ground where it's like rejection, like evaluation, improvement, while still having confidence. So that way when the opportunity strikes, like you're good.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I think like that's what I was saying. Broadway really is kind of an incredible thing for so many reasons, and made me the person I am because of that. You think you're going to have a job, you're so excited, you're at a callback, it's between you and somebody else, you get told no, you go home, you cry. The next day, you're back in line with your book, with your heels and your red lip on, hoping for another job. And you just have to do that over and over, sometimes 3 times a day. So it's literally like there's no time for feeling bad about yourself. Like you just have to literally get dressed and come back the next day being like, today's my day. Today's my day. Today's my day. It's literally that over and over and over again.
And do you think like the inconsistency of being on Broadway, you mentioned like, okay, you're there and then a couple of years, do you think that prepared you for, you know, being an entrepreneur in the fitness space?
I think Broadway prepares you for life. Because you are constantly competing with people that are top, of their game. You are constantly being told no. You have to literally pull yourself up all the time. The resilience that Broadway prepares you for and does for someone's spirit is a school in itself. And also, like, you constantly have to work on yourself. You constantly have to work on your craft. How can I learn more? How can I be smarter? How can I learn this technique? How can I get better at this? How can I get better at this? Oh, I don't do ballet. Now I have to learn how to do ballet. I don't play the trumpet. Now I'm going to learn how to play the trumpet. It's just like you're constantly on your toes. So it teaches you a multitude of things. And on top of also how to manage your money, because when you are working, you have a salary, you have insurance, you have employment, you have this cushion, and then your show closes a week later and you're back to unemployment, which in New York, I think at the time was like $400 a week, which is, barely sustainable. So you really have to learn how to save when you're working and save when you're not working.
Yeah, I want to learn more about that. How did you budget? Like, were you setting extra money aside when you were working to tide you over when unemployment would eventually end?
My dad was really good at teaching. There's 5 kids in my family, and he was really good at teaching us how to manage and save money. He taught us that at a very early age. If we wanted a new pair of jeans, we had to bring in our old pair, show why we deserved a new pair, and then earn money from helping my mom around the house to go to TJ Maxx to buy the new pair of jeans. I mean, it was just like nothing was really handed to us. We had to work for it. And I remember when I was 20 years old, I got my first Broadway show, a national tour of 42nd Street. And, I had a consistent paycheck and I had to get something done medically. And my dad was like, well, you're working now, you have a job. And I was like, right. And he was like, you're going to have to pay for that. And I was like, that's right. And then I remember him, I got the form for the 401k and I was like, Dad, what's this? And he was like, oh, this is very important. You need to do this. You need to set aside this amount of money. And it was just, him teaching me and prepared me for that. And so I feel like I just learned. I slowly learned through his guidance and also just through, New York is a tough place to live. It teaches you how to budget your money on its own. So it was just kind of that. But I'm really good at saving money when I have no money, and I'm good at saving money when I have money.
And your dad taught you so much, it sounds. Do you feel like there were any things or any gaps that he missed out on that you're like, man, I really wish I would have learned that as a kid?
Yeah, I think I don't really understand investing. Now I just have a team that handles that. Investing like stocks and bonds and all that stuff. I never really understood that. Still don't to this day. It sounds like Japanese to me. Is
that something that you want to learn?
No.
Okay, that's fair.
Only because I feel like I have. My brain works in many ways, and I feel like I have people that manage that, and I trust them, and they're doing a great job. And it's honestly like I love being able to give that to somebody else and watch that grow and happen.
Yeah.
See, and I love that approach because the behavior of saving and being disciplined, that's something that you can't delegate. So you control that, but the investing and the other things, you can delegate.
Yes.
So I love that. Yeah.
And there's people, here's the thing, there's people that are really good at that. I'm sure you are very good at that. So it's like when I'm very good at something, give me that responsibility. But I know I'm not very good at it. And now my responsibilities on my plate are so high that to go and learn all of that, it just isn't something that entices me, I'd rather learn how to play piano.
Wait, Brian, do you hear that?
Hear what?
Me, your Rich BFF, begging our viewers to stop keeping their money in accounts with 0.01% APY and get a high yield savings account. Seriously, I'm begging.
Who can say no to a face like that?
Cheer me up and sign up to become a SoFi member at SoFi.com/richerlives. You'll get a highly competitive APY on savings balances with direct deposit. Plus, you'll get complimentary access to financial planners like Brian to help guide you toward getting your money right. So Amanda, you've accomplished so much in your life, whether it be being an author, being on Broadway, but you've also overcome quite a lot of adversity, including losing your husband. Mm-hmm. How do you overcome really hard times to make sure that you can continue striving forward?
I don't think there's a timeline on it. I think that I'm still trying to overcome what I went through. I think when you go through something super traumatic and hard in your life, that healing journey never ends. Mm-hmm. It's a journey. And you have to you have the highs and lows. It's a roller coaster, and there's days, weeks, months where you feel like you're nailing it, and then a wave hits you and you come right back to where you feel like you started. So I think for me personally, it's just a constant work.
And I think like transitioning to that, we'd love to kind of talk through that experience and that process, because when you went through the process of, losing your husband, like, when did your thoughts turn to like the financial side after going through the emotional, grieving process? Would you describe your journey?
I think when it was evident that Nick was either going to be in a rehab center for around 3 to 4 years if he was going to survive, that I first started to understand the financial magnitude that it may have on my life and where that would be and take me. To give an idea, Nick was in the hospital for 95 days. His whole body was being run by machines. The ventilator alone, I think it was, and I may be actually underquoting it, $3,000 a day. So just the ventilator alone, on top of like the 20 other machines that were running his body. When I heard that, I immediately was like, what am I going to do?
That's $300,000 right there.
In just one machine.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what the total bill.
Yeah.
And then it really wasn't until, because I never thought I was going to lose my husband. I really,
of course,
up until the day he passed away, I really thought we were going to make it. So I don't think the financial magnitude and it really hit me until he passed away, and it was sort of like calls were coming in about, unfortunately, death is business, and when all of that started happening is kind of when I started realizing the financial magnitude of what was going on. Yeah.
On that note, Brian, a lot of people have medical debt. What can people actually do to even pay it off? These numbers just feel so out of this world. Like, is it even feasible to pay it off?
I think there's different options. Some people go the payment plan route. Some people go through the process of dipping into savings, investments, unfortunately, emergency funds, things like that. Some people take out unsecured debt, quite frankly, because they may be able to get that at a lower rate, depending on the medical debt. So like, there's options, and I hesitate to say this, but I feel like at that point, it's like choosing the best of the bad options from that point of scenario. And I think that's something that, like, during that period, I remember during like 2020 and 2021, a lot of times, whether it be medical debt or job losses or unexpected expenses, it was like going through a checklist at that time of like, okay, what's the option that causes the least damage in your financial inventory? And that was a lot of the conversations we had during that period as a planning team.
Yeah, I'd also say, one thing that I was really surprised by, did you guys know that 80% of medical debt and medical bills have errors on them due to coding and how insurance is billed? And you should really be checking those bills instead of just paying them, because, one typo can add tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars onto your bills that you may not necessarily need to pay.
Yeah. I feel like, how can that not be? Because like, for instance, my husband, 95 days in the hospital. I mean, I witnessed many of those days at that hospital. The amount of medicines and needles and machines and things that were being administered to him on a daily basis. Like, it's crazy how, I don't know how they monitor that and then it go, you know what I mean? Like, it's,
I don't
it
think
must,
really effectively.
and my medical bill for Nick came almost a year and a half later.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. COVID, thank goodness, the government assisted a lot of COVID patient medical bills, but I got a huge medical bill a year and a half later. Yeah.
And was that like surprise? Did you know that was
Surprise!
Okay,
Yeah.
surprise. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like a lot of times I'm in my world, so I lead financial planning and our robo-advisor at SoFi. Like on the planning side, a lot of times we kind of, I guess like this is one of those unexpected expenses and things like where you get a surprise bill. We kind of plan like, okay, how can you prepare yourself if unexpected things happen, stuff like that. But actually going through that, like, was that just surprise and scrambling? Like, okay, I got to figure out where this is coming from. Was there any sort of plan in place? Like, what did that look like?
I mean, I have, I think when something like this happens to a family, like a early, loss, like Nick was, he was 41, and I'm a mother of a 4-year-old. So I immediately, when I found a financial advisor that I knew and trusted, I was immediately into like, how can we save? Like, what can we take that I have and shove it away in so many different compartments for Elvis, for us, for start retirement, just like literally all the boxes, like how many can we start piling in so that I feel that I can be a mother and give him as much as I, possibly can for security and college and schools and all, everything. So yeah, I went into planning mode immediately because I was just nervous about being a single mom.
Yeah. Did you and Nick ever talk about family planning or estate planning or what you guys would do if something were to happen to either of you?
No, no. I mean, because you think you're invincible.
Yeah.
You're in your 40s. You're like, nothing's going to happen to us. We're fine. We've got time. Yep. We had just bought our first home. We bought that home in October. Nick got sick in February. So we were just starting, we had just closed on it and starting renovations on it when he got sick. So I think that would have probably come, like, with the closing of the home and the mortgage and everything, like filling all that paperwork out, more so just became my, my job. But yeah, no, we just, we were just starting our lives.
And I think that's probably one of the areas I've struggled with as like a financial planner, because I look at it and like I've gone through the training. I'm like, okay, I know I should do this. So like, I think I did it like very early on, but like, had I not gone through becoming a certified financial planner professional, all that stuff, I likely would never have even wanted to think about it or force myself to, quite frankly.
Yeah. Thank God my dad's in life insurance. When we had Elvis, he made us get a life insurance policy. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, Dad, leave me alone. Stop bothering me about this life insurance. And I mean, like, I clearly remember like saying to Nick, like, oh gosh, this guy has to come over and give us physicals because my dad won't shut up about life insurance. And then, one of the things that was like a saving grace when Nick passed away and my dad called me and he was like, you got the life insurance, right? And I was like, yeah, Dad, I did. And he was like, well, thank God I didn't know. This is how like uneducated I was about finances. And he was like, well, Amanda, you'll get that policy. And I was like, Dad, what are you talking about? Like I was in grief fog. And he was like, well, thank God you did that and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I can just put that away for Elvis. And it was like a weight off my shoulders.
Of course.
Oh my God. And like, it was just to know that like, that policy covered Elvis and will just sit in an account and be there for him. I was just like, again, as a single parent, I was just, thank God. And I remember saying to my dad, I was like, Dad, thank you so much. It's like, I love you. Yeah. So get life insurance, everybody.
Brian, could you tell us a little bit more about how life insurance actually works and why it might be really important for some of our viewers?
I mean, essentially, you buy a policy and you get a certain amount of death benefit, which is the amount that pays out, if you pass away while you have the coverage. And a lot of times I think the biggest struggle is like people are like, okay, how much do I need?
Right.
And most of the time you're thinking through like, okay, what are my debts? Like, do I want to pay for education for my kids? Like, are we losing income? Let's replace that. Or are we going to pay like additional caregiving costs and things along those lines? So it's really kind of going through the process. Luckily, it's gotten a lot easier, quite frankly. When I started, it was a pain in the butt. Now, a lot of it can be done online, and you can use a quick tool that says, hey, here's how much you need. You could apply online. A lot of times, you don't even have to do anything in person. So.
And Brian, a question that I get all the time across my channels on social media is, what's the difference between term versus whole life insurance?
Yeah, a fair question. Term and life insurance, think about that as temporary. You have your insurance for a certain period of time. You're kind of like renting it, where if you pass away during that time, it pays out. If you don't, it doesn't pay out. Whole life insurance, any other type of permanent life insurance, it's kind of forever. So you own it for your entire life, and whenever you pass away, it pays out. We get this question all the time too in our planning conversations. We actually wrote an article about it, and we put it on SoFi Learn. It's on our website. That, along with a ton of other great articles to help answer these types of questions.
A tough but important thing to think about is having a safety net. And that starts with having a personal savings account. And not just any savings account, a good one.
So true. A solid high-yield savings account like SoFi's earns you more money on your money.
Plus, you're not losing that money to account fees, and it's all protected with FDIC insurance that can go all the way up to $2 million through a network of participating banks.
It's hard to go wrong with a SoFi savings account.
Go to SoFi.com/richerlives to learn more about how to keep your financial future secure. And obviously, with loss, there are so many things that we can only imagine, like you had to go through. Was there anything that really surprised you, that caught you off guard, that you were like, wow, nobody talks about this?
I think in general, people just don't talk about grief and the grieving process and how hard and difficult it is. I think that's just, people rightfully so have a hard time talking about death and bringing it up. And, it's just a tough topic. You feel like you can't, even if your friend, goes through like their father or their mother dies, it's like, you feel like, oh gosh, do they want to talk about it? How do I talk about it? Do they, how do I bring it up? And it's like this taboo topic, which I get, but is also like, gosh, we need to remove that and just kind of be more open about talking about it, because unfortunately, it is something that every person in this world will encounter at some point in their lives.
Did you feel like you had a decent support system aside from, folks on social media, like in your real life?
Oh yeah, I have the most incredible family in the entire world and friends here. Yeah, thank God for them. Yeah.
How did you have the power or the courage to share that process, I guess, a little bit more publicly, which did have a big impact on a lot of people's lives?
Yeah, when Nick got sick, when COVID started, it was, we have to go back in time and remember that time, because it was such a, I think, a unique time in our lives and in history. I mean, we were all stuck in our homes doing nothing. We had nothing going on, So social media was kind of like the only thing that could bring you community or kind of feeling that you had people around you if you were living alone. When I first went public about Nick, it was mostly just to give advice in case anyone else at their home was just like sleeping on the couch, because that was Nick's only symptom. So it was more so just like, in case this is happening to anyone else, maybe you should go to the hospital emergency room too, because my husband apparently has COVID and all he's doing is sleeping, which, was not anything that was being on the news, a worrisome thing. So it was more so just at first like, hey, everybody. And then as things just started snowballing, it just became this like thing that just started happening. It wasn't planned. Do you know what I mean? Like it just was just something that kind of kept happening. And then I found so much help through the community I was building on social media, medical advice and help with Elvis and help from my family. And it was just like this, it was a lifeline. So then I couldn't stop because it was literally like, I remember a day where the doctors and nurses were like, there is nothing else we can do. We don't know what to do. And I got on social media and I was like, guys, what do you do for this? And like the flood of information that immediately came my way from people all over the world. Like it was a lifeline. So it was just kind of like this snowball effect that just kept building and building and building and building. And thank God it did, because it really did, I think, prolong Nick's life and help me and help my family and Nick's family.
All right, so this is a question we like to ask a lot of our guests. What does living a rich life mean to you?
I think for me, it's just feeling, full and safe, and having, health and happiness and a loving home. And I think those, are kind of like the circle of them, and the ability to, just fulfill all of those needs, makes me feel like I'm having a rich life.
That's amazing. So if you had to give one tip to people to say, hey, go out and do that to live a richer life, what would your go-to advice be?
I would say, I would just say that don't take anything for granted, if that makes sense. I feel like, I think we take a lot of things for granted in life, and if we didn't, you would find yourself living a richer, fuller life.
Amanda, you've now gone through so many experiences in your life. How are you planning for the future?
Yeah, great question. Well, thankfully now I have my financial advisor in my kind of arsenal of help, and then a team of people. And because I have so many different jobs and income sources, I do kind of like half year or quarter year checkups with him and the team. And then because I'm just this kind of person, usually my dad and my like really great friend who is very much kind of like a financial expert, they're also on board with these meetings, and we kind of all sit down and just kind of like check and balance everything, and just they kind of fill me in as much as possible until I kind of go cross-eyed with learning about numbers. But I think it's just important. It's important for me to kind of, even though I kind of give that responsibility to these people, to also be a parent, be present with it, look at how things are going, check in, make sure that, I'm saving enough money and I'm not spending enough, too much money. So I kind of just check and balance it all a couple of times a year. And I think that helps me feel like, okay, I'm planning for my future, I'm saving, I'm taking control of what I can, and being present in everything that I'm doing so that I see the reward from it.
That's awesome. And the multi-times a year check-ins allows you to change anything if your goals change.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Or if, there's a strike and we have to pull back, or take some, different things a different way. Or if, one of my businesses isn't doing as much as, pulling in as much money as it used to, what changed? Why? What can I do to make it grow? Or do I need to? That's also super important, because I'm doing so many things. It's like, if one thing starts to go a little bit under or not as much, is that okay? Or do I need to push forward in that? So it's a great check-in. Yeah.
As you're talking about that, I think, the value of having that type of assistance. And for those of you at home, SoFi actually offers our members complimentary access to financial planners, whether it be going through it the first time, going in check-ins on an ongoing basis, really whatever people need. So if you need to kind of talk through this with someone, feel free to, go on the SoFi app or go on our website.
You don't have to do it by yourself, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like, I could never do it by myself. I mean, I could, but it's nice to know that there's experts to help you.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, right? Like, some people try to force it by themselves.
Yes.
As opposed to saying, okay, here's what I'm good at, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Here's where I can delegate. And by delegating, then you get to take advantage of all that extra time
Right.
and what you're good at.
Right.
So.
Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. You are a treasure trove of wisdom, and we're so grateful.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and make sure to like and subscribe so you can be the first to know when our next episode drops.
And in the meantime, go follow SoFi on TikTok and Instagram to get even more guidance on living a richer life.
See you next time.
Hi, it's me, Brian Walsh, aka Dr. Money again, to talk about some of the legal stuff. Though I am a certified financial planner professional, your finances are unique. That means anything I talked about today shouldn't be considered advice. Think of it more as high-level education or guidance.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Like if you would have rapped, I would have known Hamilton.
Zero musical talent here, okay?
B Mark.